Good morning, guys. How is everybody doing? Are we going crazy with boredom, or are you keeping yourself busy? What are you getting up to? Tell me. Have you cleaned the windows? Have you cleaned the walls? What are you up to? So just to entertain you again this morning with a new little story. So yesterday we sailed to St. Helena, and I read from my notes about our journey. If you watched it, you will know we had quite a few breakages, including our engine, which was very frustrating and scary, but we managed to learn how to sail and really just sailed in and dropped the anchor, and yeah, it was an incredible experience. But now we're in St. Helena. Now, St. Helena Island is probably one of the most fascinating places I have ever been to. So basically it's right smack bang in the middle of the Atlantic. It was 1,200 miles to South America and 1,200 miles to Africa that way, like so remote, so far away. And we had been at sea for 16 days, so it was a long trip. And the funny thing was, when we finally stepped ashore, we set the anchor, and they actually have a sort of ferry service there, because you can't really take your dinghy ashore because there's no beach. There's one port. Now bear in mind, this island has steep cliffs all around it, so the port is really just a cliff as well. There's no beach to pull your dinghy up. So to go ashore meant that it was better to just take their ferry, and they would come and pick you up at the boat and take you ashore. But when you got to the shore, there was like a concrete platform, and then there was this metal bar with a whole lot of ropes with a knot at the end of the rope. So the ferry would pull up against this wall, like a dock wall, and the sea, because it's middle of the ocean, the sea would be like this. So the dinghy, it's not a dinghy, it's like a ferry, but a small ferry would come in alongside this concrete, but the sea was still going like this. So you basically had to time it. So when the boat went up, you grabbed a rope and you swung onto this dock, and you were like, yay, I made it. And I mean, we were fit young people, but there were a lot of other sailors that were older people who really struggled with that. And we were good friends with another couple that had like a 4 and a 6-year-old. So they would have to do that, time it with a kid under each arm, and then grab the rope and swing ashore like a monkey, holding onto their kids and their shopping or whatever. So yeah, pretty intense. I've actually found a couple of websites or videos that you might be interested in watching just to see this island, because it's like nothing I've ever experienced. So we finally went ashore and we were wandering around, but because we'd been at sea for so long and we were like this all the time, when we stood on flat ground, we felt like we were drunk. We were like dizzy. We were stumbling, like you'd be walking along trying to walk and you'd be going crooked. Like, it was so weird. Have you ever, I don't know if you've traveled a long haul flight or even spent a day on a boat, and when you go home and you hop into bed that night, it feels like the room is moving. Well, this was like that on steroids. You know, it was crazy. The whole first day on land, we couldn't walk in a straight line. It was crazy. So yeah, the people on this island, super friendly. You'd be walking down the street and people would be like, hi, because obviously we stood out like sore thumbs. Everybody knows everybody on that island, and all of a sudden there's, 15 yachts in the harbour, and so that means there's at least 30, maybe more new people on the island. So everywhere we went, people like, hi, how are you? Hi. We were like, okay, hi. And a couple of times my husband and I would want to go for a hike. Now, it's a very steep island, so all the walking tracks were super steep, and we'd be like walking up these mountain sort of tracks, or even on the road. Sometimes we walked along the roadside, and if we were walking along the roadside, cars would stop and pull up next to us and like, come on, get in, well, I'll give you a ride. And we like, no, we want to walk because we haven't walked in 16 days, but thank you, you know. They just couldn't understand why anyone would be crazy enough to be walking around on these roads like this. Yeah, the cars there, because there's not regular freight service or anything like that, the cars on the island all were mostly old, like only old cars, and because they're so remote and you don't just buy a new car like we do, you know, so the cars that they had there were old. It was like stepping into a time warp, but the cars were really well looked after. So it was like being back in the 50s with cars that, or, you know, the 60s, the cars that my parents would have been driving when they were teenagers, were like in pristine condition, incredible old cars. So the ship would take 5 days to get from Cape Town. Just to give you an idea, it took us on our little sailboat 16 days. So it's a big difference, big difference on how long it takes. I've actually found a really cool video that I'll put the link below if you've got time to watch it. And it's on the journey of the Royal St. Helena ship. And they take a few paid passengers on board, and it's quite fascinating. Yeah, Cuba. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Claudine. Yeah, I've heard Cuba's cars are like that too. Yeah, you can't get parts, so they just fix them. It's incredible. This day and age, we've got such a throwaway society, haven't we? It's like, oh, my car's a bomb. Time to get a new one. You know, back then, or in a remote location like that, they don't have that luxury. So, and the interesting thing, now we spent probably a month in St. Helena. There was this one place that all the cruising yachts would go to. It was called Anne's Place, and it was a bit of a restaurant, a bit of a bar. And she has this book. Well, she probably got several books because I believe Anne's Place is still open. But all the yachts that came through would fill out in this book and, you know, write their comments of their journey or whatever. And if anyone ever goes there, please, I need you to go to Anne's Place and take a photo of what we wrote, because I've got no idea. You know, back then we didn't take photos of everything. Hi, Kathy. If you can post the links about that island, I'll do that when I'm finished. Yeah, I'll post it. There's some cool, just to see the photos. It's incredible. So the other thing is, my boyfriend, he got all weird while we were there, and he was like, yeah, he kept wanting to do all these hikes and go, you know, to some places with these amazing views. And I remember going to this one fort that was up on the top of this cliff, and he packed a picnic, and there was olives, and we had some special cheese that we'd brought from South Africa. So it was like he was up to something, but I didn't think anything of it. And then another time, a couple of days later, well, the trip in the fort was a bit weird because the wind was so strong, like our olives were rolling off the cheese board, getting blown away. And then we went on this camping trip. Now, we did have a tent on the boat, and we took our tent and we went on this camping trip over the other side of the island. And I think there was a bit of a beach there, but it was a black sand beach. And it wasn't really a swimming beach, because it's really a volcanic island, you know. It's pretty steep and kind of unusual. Anyway, so we were there, we camped, and another couple camped with us from another boat. And we had a campfire, and we sat around the fire. And then the next morning we got up. And again, my husband, my boyfriend, he wants to hike up to this cliff. So off we go, and yeah, okay, off we go. We'll go do some more cliff hanging. And we're sitting up there. We get to this one spot where just incredible views, because you're looking out to sea and there's nothing out to sea. It is blue, 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 all the way out to Cape Town, Antarctica, wherever, you know. It's just view for forever. And yeah, next thing he's down on one knee, and will I marry him? Well, I'm on a cliff. I'm not going to say no, right? And also, I'm on the world's most remote island. If I don't say yes, how am I going to get home? So that's it. We got engaged in St. Helena, and yeah, that was all pretty exciting. another funny story from our sail there. Okay, when I was always traveling as a single young girl, the arrangement with my family was that every Sunday we would call home. Now, it was reverse charges, thanks Dad. And so once a week, every Sunday, we'd call and we'd say, you know, have a quick conversation so that they knew that we were alive. Okay, for the beginning of my trip, I was with my sister, but then even when I was on my own, always called home, reverse charges on Sunday. So my dad's phone bill was like $500. Crazy. I mean, you think now how lucky we are. We've got this whole video thing going on. Anyway, so my dad he'd be like, yep, good, glad you're alive, bye. Didn't want to talk. He never wanted to chat. My mum would be like trying to get some conversation going and my dad's in the background saying, okay, good, glad you're safe, bye. Anyway, so when we were underway, I mentioned in the video that we were talking to Cape Town Radio on SSB radio. So for the first half of the trip, we could still make contact. We were close enough to Cape Town that we could still talk to them via SSB radio. And twice they patched us through. So they would then make the reverse charge phone call. Mostly, we did it twice to Justin's family because they were in South Africa. But once they called my dad in Australia, reverse charges. And so I'm talking on a radio and I'm saying, yeah, we've got 15 knots of wind, Dad, over. And my dad's on the telephone going, okay, is everything all right, over? How much is this costing me, over? It was all about the money. Glad to know we're still alive, but how much is this costing me? It's so funny. Anyway, so yeah, we got engaged in St. Helena. We stayed there for a month because we loved being on land after spending so long at sea. We got our engine fixed. It had been, the injector pump had jammed, so the guys, the mechanics there in St. Helena, so used to fixing things because you can't go buy a new one. So he just fixed it for us, put it back in. Oh, Gypsy. Gyps, come on. Someone's walking past with a dog. So Gypsy, hey, shh. Hey, come here, come here. All the hair's standing up. Come here, come on. She's not coming. She doesn't want to be on video. Yeah, so that was St. Helena. I'm going to put the videos below. It's an incredible island. You have to check it out. The cliffs around the outside edge and then this lush, topped with lush rainforest and weird different plants that you've never seen. Apparently it's the Galapagos of the Atlantic Ocean because there's so many unique different fauna and animals. So yeah, I'll give you some links to check it out. Okay, have a great day, night there, and let me know below and what you thought, and if you'd like to go back to St. Helena. I would love if you could go to Anne's place for me and take a photo of what we wrote in the book all those years ago. That would be fantastic. Tomorrow I will talk about our sail to Ascension Island, which was 10 days north. I think it was 10 days to get there, and that's another remote island, but there was an American Air Force base on this island, so we were looking forward to that. There was a diner that we were going to get some Bruce Springsteen and some corn dogs, hot dogs, or some great American food. Okay, talk to you tomorrow. Bye.